Hello and welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. Week 14's here, which means the playoffs are here.
Woo.
And our forums have been extremely active with the stardom sit-em questions, and we'll get to that in a moment. However, we want to go off a little bit of these two new running back developing stories that are happening.
First one's out there in Washington, and Ganther is taking over the starting running backs out there for the Redskins. Now, we do think he has a little bit of value this week against Oakland. He could be a decent spot start if you're in a jam, but we wouldn't suggest starting him over any big names. But take a look at him. But this also does change one thing from our waiver wire show, and Devin Thomas is no longer going to be returning kicks. That job goes back to Rock Cartwright, right? So if you're expecting Devin Thomas to get some return yards, it's not going to happen this week.
And the next one, Steve Slayton for the Texans is placed on injured reserve. That leaves the door open for Chris Brown and Ryan Moats. And it's really the question is who should be picking up.
Moats.
Brown's going to be getting the goal lines, and Moats will probably be getting a little more work in between the 20s. My gut just tells me Brown. I think Kubiak's a little more, has a little more faith in Brown, but, I don't have too much hard facts to back that up with.
Slayton was out last week too. Moats had over twice as many touches. He averaged over a yard more a carry. I think Moats is the one to own. But either way, it's going to be a nasty timeshare. We say keep both these guys on your bench until you see how things shake out. Alright, Brent, let's get into our stardom sit-em straight from our forums. The first one comes from Spitative. He wants you to pick two: Steven Jackson versus Tennessee, Adai versus Denver, Turner versus New Orleans, or Thomas Jones versus Tampa Bay.
Well, I'm going to take Turner out. I really don't think he's going to play this week. So then that leaves the three other guys, with Steven Jackson being my must-start out of those three. And then I'm going to put Thomas Jones slightly ahead of Adai. Thomas Jones is playing a Tampa Bay rush defense that gives up about $160 a game. He's just going to run all over him. Go with Jackson and Thomas Jones.
I'm going to have to disagree a little bit. I think I would put Adai over Thomas Jones just because I know you're probably licking your chops looking at that matchup versus Tampa Bay, but it looks like Sanchez is going to be out. They might be putting 8 in the box on him all day, making it a lot harder for Jones to run. I don't know if it's quite as favorable a matchup as it might look like.
We'll see. Should discuss that maybe prior to this. But Brett Berry, 23, wants to know, Dustin, Alex Smith versus the Cardinals or McNabb versus the Giants?
I can't believe I'm going to say this. But go with Alex Smith this week.
How many times we say anemic passing offense before the season?
I know, but they've been asking Frank Gore to do a lot less lately, and they got Crabtree going out there. Josh Morgan's getting involved. Vernon Davis, obviously. They've been a lot better lately through the air. I really think the Cardinals-49ers game could be a shootout. It could be a lot of points in that game. And it doesn't hurt that McNabb's going against the Giants' tough D, so I say keep McNabb on your bench. I know it's scary.
Wow.
But
First week of the playoffs, going to sit him. All right.
All right, Brett, we got one from T-Banks51. Wants to know Maroney versus Carolina or LT versus Dallas.
I say by default almost you go with LT. Maroney, he had that streak of a bunch of touchdowns, but Sammy Morris is back. Kevin Falk's always there, who Tom Brady loves. So when you mix those two guys in, it's just a three-headed monster. Scares me a little bit for the first round of playoffs. Go with a guy you know is going to get you, some quality points at least, and that's going to be LT this week.
All right, let's get into our studs, duds, and sleepers. We're going to start with Mike's picks. His stud is Chris Johnson against the Rams. Why wouldn't he like that matchup? He should be able to run all over him. His dud is Chris Brown.
Against me, both of them.
Now, the matchup's not that bad against Seattle, but he really hates the timeshare. We'd keep him on your bench unless you absolutely have to start him. And his sleepers, Reggie Bush. They're going up against a banged-up Atlanta team. They should be able to get up early. Look for them to run a lot. We think Reggie Bush could get involved. And Mike Bell could miss the game on Sunday, which would mean a few more carries for Bush.
All right, my stud, and I never thought I'd be saying this after week one. Jamal Charles is going to be my stud this week. He's playing Buffalo, who just can't stop anybody against the rush, and he's been playing great since LJ's been basically kicked off that Chiefs team. My dud is Kenny Britt. A lot of people are asking us questions about starting Britt. I personally don't like him that much this week because if he doesn't find the end zone, I don't think he's going to be that fancy relevant. And Justin Gage might be coming back, which really does hurt his value. And my sleeper is Carson Palmer. And I know what you're thinking if you own him. He's been garbage all year pretty much fantasy-wise. They do win, Dustin, but he hasn't been good fantasy. But he hasn't thrown over for 300 yards. He hasn't passed for over 250 yards but 2 times. But I think this week they might be even playing a little bit from behind in Minnesota, and the only way you can attack them is through the air. So I think he's going to at least get a shot to put up some decent points for you.
All right, my stud, I'm going with Kurt Warner. I talked about it earlier. I think that game could be a high-scoring game. Look for Warner to be throwing early and often. My dud, I'm going with Antonio Bryant.
Welcome back to the dud list, Bryant.
He's been solid the last few weeks. But going up against Revis and the Jets, I think you keep him on your bench unless you're very desperate.
Let me say the reason he wasn't on the dud list because he was playing so awful for so long. But
And my sleeper is Alex Smith. Like I've been saying this whole show, I think that game could be a shootout. I wouldn't start Smith over any huge names, but if you don't like your quarterback matchup, you might want to take a look at Alex Smith. He could have a solid week. So that's it for this week's show. I'll be back Tuesday night for the Waiver Wire show. Until then, good luck in the playoffs. We'll be in the forums answering as many questions as we can. We'll see you next week.